Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth Open Toronto Digital Transformation session. If you haven't heard about Open Toronto, Open stands for Overseas Pakistani Entrepreneurs Network. Open Toronto is a chapter of Open Global, which is a global organization. And there is an interesting story of four young entrepreneurs over 20 years ago sitting at MIT dreaming about enabling a platform focused on entrepreneurship and Pakistani diaspora. And today, Open members have sold companies worth billions of dollars and have raised multiple $billion, serving the unicorns. And we have 13 chapters globally, thousands of members. If you want to learn more about Open Global, the URL is openglobalweb.org. Don't worry about the URL. We'll be sharing that after the session with all the attendees. So if you have not registered and you got the link and you joined the session, please do register at dx.opentoronto.org, and we'll make sure that you get all the resources, the recording and everything from this session. Today's session is hosted by Open Toronto chapter. You can explore further details about Open Toronto at opentoronto.org. That's the URL. Again, don't worry about the URL. We'll be sharing it after the session. Coming back to the session, today's session is the presentation of Digital Transformation Cluster at Open Toronto. So I'm going to share with you the previous four sessions very quickly that were hosted by Open Toronto, the DX cluster, Government as a Platform by Mr. Jose Ali, Director, Digital Technology and Innovation, Government of Ontario. So that was the first one. Second one was Industry 4.0, Disrupting Trends in Manufacturing and Wholesale by Nadeem Hashmi, which is myself, and Chuck Homer, the Senior Consultant at Tech. Third one was Digitally Transformed Electric Grid of the Future by Mr. Faisal Qazi, CEO Siemens. And the fourth one was 0 to 400 million by Mr. Jabran Niaz. We are honored to have him again today. He's CEO Utopia Deals and Utopia Industries. If you are interested in these videos as well, we can share the resources and links of these sessions with you. So don't forget to register if you haven't registered already. Okay. Okay, before we introduce you to the speakers and start the discussion, a few words about setting the right expectations for the session. If you own a brand or you are a wholesaler, a distributor, or a manufacturer, a retailer, or selling online as a drop shipper, or you are selling direct, or you are related to any of these areas of businesses, this session is for you. Today's speakers have a background ranging from startups, SMEs, small to medium enterprises, all the way up to enterprises, and they've been working in multinationals as well, so multinational experiences there as well. So we can learn from their experiences in that array of experience, through that area of experience. Today, we'll discuss the challenges and opportunities emerging for businesses across supply chain. And supply chain as such is a vast subject. So we'll focus on the 6 areas inside supply chain, highlighting the challenges and opportunities in the areas of procurement and sourcing, freight and shipping, warehousing, sales, orders fulfillment, and inventory management. Now let's have our speakers quick intro in alphabetical order. We'll start with you, Jabran. Jabran, please.
Hi, Nadeem. I'm CEO of Utopia Deals and Utopia Industries. The Utopia Deals is one of the top 10 sellers at Amazon.com. With presence in US, Canada, UK, and Europe. And Utopia Industries is a manufacturing company that manufacture goods from Pakistan. Right now, it's among top 25 exporters of Pakistan. So my experience is mostly in manufacturing, in e-commerce, and we also do our own logistics. So my experience is in supply chain logistics and sourcing for these businesses. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jabra. And after that, I'll request Khalid. Khalid, please introduce yourself.
So this is Khalid Nasim. I'm the CEO of Custom Manufacturing, which is an additive manufacturing setup based out of Toronto. I was part of Honeywell organization for the last 28 years in different functions, and the last 10 years in sourcing and procurement for the company here in Canada and in the US. So my experience and background is in engineering, project management, procurement, sourcing, and manufacturing.
Thank you, Khalid. So next, I'll pass on the honor being the host to Zulfikar, and I'll introduce myself after him. So Zulfikar, please go ahead. Oh, can you hear me?
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. And thank you, Nadeem Ahmed. I am one of the directors in Global Sources, a lumber distribution and export company back in 2006. And over the years, ventured into value-added products. We work in the green building, acoustic and fire retardant industry in terms of manufacturing panels that are used for commercial projects. The company operates at what a bankers would call at about we export to about 20 different countries and carry about 150 products in our distribution yard. Yeah, I look forward to our conversation on the supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you, Zulfikar. Great. Okay, my name is Nadeem Hashmi. I am CEO at GeoViz Inc. I'm basically an entrepreneur focused on creating impact in the industry, enabling business success by disrupting the industries with simpler, faster, and results-driven robust solutions. My startups have been facing successes and failures, and I learned the lessons in both cases. Candela was my first startup, and it's a retail management software being sold now. It's a decent success, sold globally over 12 countries, hold maximum or majority of Pakistani retail market as a retail management system. So my latest startup is focused on omni-channel inventory and order fulfillment. That's it. That's a brief intro about me, and I'm looking forward to this discussion today on supply chains and the emerging opportunities for businesses. Now, without any further ado, let's start today's discussion. Supply chains and the business opportunities. So let's focus procurement and sourcing. And the first question that comes to our mind is that what has already changed? It's not that what kind of change is coming, but what has already changed and industry has accepted that change. So I'll start off with Khalid Saab being part of the procurement team at Honeywell. Khalid.
Yeah. So prior to COVID disruption, focus for corporations like Honeywell was on the procurement strategy was geared towards getting a year-over-year reduction in cost or price from the suppliers. That was the main focus. But during COVID and afterwards, the focus changed from price negotiation to availability. So it was a clear demarcation. I mean, clear distinction between before and after, and because the suppliers who had inventory had the power to drive the negotiation towards that angle and move away from price negotiations. So I experienced this personally, and I think this is going to continue in quite a lot of commodities and services as well, because there is shortage of parts commodities as well as people. So that is for the foreseeable future. That's what I see. That availability will drive the procurement and sourcing discussions.
Very interesting. So for audiences, that was the perspective from Khalid representing Fortune 100, the company, and how the thinking has evolved and where it is. I would like to now go to Zulfikar because he is like more towards B2B sales and what has changed over there? 'Cause like he said, he's importing, exporting over 20 countries. So what is his experience over like product search, supplier validation, geography changes, negotiation like Khalid Saab highlighted. So what's your perspective on that? That what has already changed in the last couple of years?
Nadeem, thank you. I think the short answer is everything. So the way we saw business pre-COVID, especially in terms of supply chain, I think almost everything, every different variable has been challenged. Like Khalid said, we looked at pricing. We had the ability to make people compete for your business. That kind of change into availability metrics. You know, I mean, there are if you look at the kind of, I mean, and if you ask them, the chain management, building resilience in the supply chain, risk management, instead of those KYCs, you know your customer. I mean, I think this is more like know your suppliers and how frequently you do your supplier assessments. These are the things that I think the product and inventory has become name of the game. And then it has also affected financing, working capital. I mean, I think we'll get to talk about managing compliance when you export into so many different countries. The politics of business. You've seen things going on vaccinations and how do they travel internationally and how do they get prioritized. So I think pretty much everything has changed. We are in a new kind of field, and we have to learn our rules all over again.
Wow, that was business to business. Thank you, Zulfikar. Now I'm coming towards a cutthroat area of business called business to consumer and selling over e-commerce. And here is the e-commerce king with us today, Mr. Jebran. Jebran, go ahead. What's your perspective on procurement?
Okay, so we have two sides of it, right? One, we have the side where we buy goods from suppliers worldwide, right? In China and Pakistan and worldwide, and we buy stuff from different locations. So the most common way for sellers to procure their goods was to go and travel and go to different trade shows. There are very famous trade shows in Germany, in Frankfurt, and then there are some popular trade shows. Canton Fair is one of the world's largest trade show where most people go and try to find suppliers for different type of goods in different categories. And same applies to in Vegas and New York. There are different trade shows in Chicago where people visit all year round and buyers meet suppliers. So that was the normal way where you like find big companies, you talk with them in person, you build relationships, and then you actually evaluate them, get quotes for different prices, and then you actually work with them for the rest of the year and wait for next trade show to find more suppliers. So with 2 years of COVID and a lot of trade shows have been canceled, it actually permanent impact on people. So people are now realizing that you can actually procure goods without visiting trade shows. So that's going to have a long-lasting impact on a trade show business and people who are relying on trade shows to get business, right? So they have to find, and a lot of people have actually tried different ways. I have seen a lot of people trying virtual trade shows. That was a big failure. Like Kenton and many big players tried on a physical location. They offered to their buyers a virtual trade show, and then there was a virtual with where both sellers and buyers are sitting on their own place and doing virtual trade shows. But there was no engagement and there was no activity. So that was a big disruption in a buyer selling area for procurement. Now most of the procurement actually do rely more on Alibaba or similar platform where actually people go and find suppliers. So I believe that there's a big gap now after COVID for people who want to build platforms that can replace trade shows or provide similar services that people expect from trade shows to find new suppliers for their goods. So I think that is something that happened in the last couple of years. That was a major disruption. And the other thing that Khalid and Zulfikar mentioned, that the COVID era, the supplies were tough. Anyone who had the product was king. They were dictating their price. But I think that was a temporary. So there was a pre-COVID, there was a COVID era, there is a post-COVID era. So now things are different. Now everyone have inventory today. So there's a different market today. The procurement is still complex because after COVID, the price hikes have actually impacted procurement a lot. People are like, the freight have impacted procurement. So before, the freight used to be very low. So when you're procuring something, you don't care from where you're procuring. Now, when you're procuring something, you need to make sure that you're procuring from a country where the freight, the product cost of the product plus freight of the product actually combined makes you the better combination of the price. So people never used to worry about it because the freight from China maybe go as low as $1,500 from China to LA, and maybe like $2,000, and that the overall percentage of the freight could be 3 to 4%. But when the freight start hitting 10,000, 15,000 number, the freight factor become more like 20%, 35%. So that made a huge difference in terms of people's preference from where they want to buy their goods. And we actually made a lot of important decisions in that time to make sure that we have multiple options. Like if the freight is lower from a specific geographic manufacturing location, then we may divert our orders to that location because of the lower freight. So it's not just a matter of price, it's more freight and price combination now.
Wonderful. So interestingly, you highlighted the challenges and at the same time you highlighted the opportunities. I was about to come towards that, okay, we have discussed challenges, but what are the opportunities? So from your side, interesting to know two opportunities. One is on the, there's a cap. Once, because the trade shows have tried the virtual thing, but virtual is not really working, and people have learned new ways of doing things, but the gap is there. The physical feel is very important. So maybe some kind of a mix of physical or virtual or something. Interesting. From my side, I would like to add that as a consultant working with enterprises and even starting from startups to enterprises and in different industries we are serving, what we have observed is that from procurement side of view, like most of our speakers have highlighted, that there was a fear of not getting the supplies. So the pricing was secondary, availability was prime. At the same time, there are some of our customers. So imagine that not everyone is importing from Asia. So if you are an American customer and somehow the supplies are from Canada and are not affected by the raw material that comes from outside, maybe those businesses acted differently and maybe continued differently. And a couple of examples are there in our customers as well. But mostly, yes, the fear was there and is still there. And I'm glad to hear from Jabran that maybe the procurement side should start thinking that situation is exactly not like that anymore. You may try to negotiate again, maybe. That's what maybe you were highlighting, right? Okay, so with that, I would like to move to the next topic, which is freight and shipment. So I'll start with Zulfikar. Zulfikar, you are heavy duty involved over there, and then I'll come to Jabran. So Zulfikar first on that.
Yeah, thank you, Nadeem. I think our product ships heavy. We are very reliant on container traffic. Some of our bigger routes, we have been able to go on what we call liner vessels in our industry. And within the liner vessels, there are handy size vessels. So some of players in the same industry, we pool together, and instead of waiting for the container freight to perform or show up or settle at a price, on some of our shipping routes, we managed to hire full vessels and chart out a route, and we were able to turn that threat into an opportunity, because the customers would need to buy at higher volumes of the product to be able to be on that vessel. So I think the freight markets, it would be a very general statement to say it's back to normal, because it kind of really depends on your own freight route, your own shipping route. I mean, things going out of Europe to other places, better today than yesterday, but I think within North America, the freight is still in a very, very bad overstretch situation. Also, as you try to de-Russia and de-China your procurement systems, it's sometimes of who finds the empty containers to ship their cargo. So I'm kind of, from where I'm seeing it, I see that the freight nightmare is not over as yet.
Interesting. That was the B2B side. Again, I'll come to Jebran from the e-commerce side, because, well, as I remember, Jebran, there are you have hundreds of containers moving every month, right? That's the scale you are operating at. So what's your take on that? What has already changed?
So we are also a very heavy user of containers. Actually, we move about 3,000 to 4,000 containers a year in and out. So we receive almost import 3,000 containers a year, and we delivered as many containers to Amazon. By the way, we were Shipper of the Year awarded by Amazon for 2021, and we shared this award with Procter & Gamble and a couple of other companies. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. For the freight industry, the last 2 years were terrible. Bulk of our revenue just went into paying freight cost. The freight cost from China that used to vary from $1,500 to $2,500 from China to LA ports increased to as high as $10,000 to $15,000, even $18,000. And in some cases, moving goods from China to Canada or China to UK and Europe was almost impossible for some duration, that it was as high as $18,000 to $20,000, and that as being unreliable. So, and there were times that the value of the goods in the container is only $10,000 or $15,000, but the freight of the container is at least, in some cases, was more than the value of the goods. That's what happened, and even still happening to some extent. The freights have came back. It reached the max in the COVID, and then it just came back to 8,000 mark, which is from China to USA, but still it is still way higher than its normal value. But we do projections all the time. We read the market, we do studies. So because we have to negotiate the freight. Right now, I have been reading multiple articles about Walmart, Costco, and Target, and we noticed that they have very, very high inventory. They have all-time high inventory, and the same applies to Amazon sellers and major Amazon aggregators. All of them have very high inventory in USA. So USA, since it's one of the largest importers of the containers, as major retailers in USA have a very high inventory, I do believe that to ease their profits in coming quarters, they may go slow down in buying, which makes me think that my projection is that in the coming quarter and the following quarter, the freight prices can drop sharply at some point. As the demand drops, and if the freight price drops and demand drop, that means both commodity price can drop and the freight price can drop because of the high inflation. As it is not only the high inventory with these retailers, but also the inflation will eventually impact the customer, because we do notice that our customer demand, even though our sales are growing, but but we do notice in our industry that demand overall is not as strong as it should be. So we do see that in coming months that we have some expectations that the demand can drop a little bit. So which is actually very important for supply chain and procurement, because if you have a lot of inventory, you may want to sell it soon. Or if you are making future orders, you may want to be very cautious because of the freight price. And if you are doing any annual contracts of freights, you also want to be cautious that you don't want to sign like a 1 year or 3 year freight contract at a $8,000 value and later realize that it is dropped to maybe something like 3,000. So I would be very cautious in coming months with this data. I'll share with you some links that I have for these articles for these major retailers, their inventory. But yeah, that is like my projections for freight in coming days.
Cool. I think that was a pretty comprehensive, in full scope review of the situation and the impact on freight. Appreciate it. I would like to add a couple of points here from my exposure and my experience working with the companies that related to freight. There was another thing when the freights went high and even the suppliers still were not able to reach the suppliers. They came up with some new ideas. I'm talking about not very small, but like small to medium sized ones that we noticed that they were able to create a mix of sales. So for instance, if they were buying something from Europe, they were putting the option on the table that you can buy something, these products that you can get within like 3-5 days for those products which they had inventory, and the others they adopted another way that ship direct from through air freight or some other mechanisms from other countries. The shipment was a little bit high, but people tried some alternate ways. I don't know if you call that micro commerce or whatever you call that, but people tried that, and I never saw that before. After COVID, this avenue got more strength, more traction. I don't know what the future of it is, but that is where we saw businesses doing decent job from business perspective, and as well as keeping their customers happy. Okay, Khalsab, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, I would like to add an alternate point of view here. Is that I moved into creating a manufacturing setup in Canada at the time where manufacturing would have seemed that it's moving away, but utilizing technology, at the end you are utilizing freight to get products from a supplier, bring it in here, and then sell locally. So I'm proposing, and I'm seeing that from a business to business point of view, and especially in the industrial side, is make locally and supply locally, utilizing technologies like what I'm doing is additive manufacturing, 3D printing, and utilizing the benefit of the technology and supplying parts locally, and move away from spending so much money on freight and shipment and tying your working capital in huge inventory. I'll give you an example. This is a clip setup. I can print 2,000 of these in a day. This is injection molding level of output. And if any customers requires quantities that they can consume and sell to their customers in 15 days time, they just need to buy the amount locally, quantities locally from us, and not tie their working capital in importing 100,000 of these for consuming in next 6 months period of time, and go through the hassle of shipping and experiencing these reliability issues. So I'm coming with an alternate from a opportunity perspective, that look at local supply or local manufacturers with these kind of technical solutions available.
Wonderful. I think that's a very interesting one, an interesting aspect that you added. There are a couple of questions related to first two topics. That first one is that how, and it's Raphael asking, and the question is that how the rising interest rates would affect procurement for e-commerce and big box stores. Volume discounts were working last year, but now many big box stores are overstocked. I would say that I am now adding here sales as well because we are talking about inventory management, stock overstockage, and all that. So I'll start with I'll put this question to Jabran. Jabran, would you like to answer that?
So because of the high interest rate, it's going to impact just everyone. But the high interest rate means, so a lot of these retailers have something called asset-based lending. So they use their inventory as a collateral and they lend money against that. So any like big retailer like Walmart or anyone else, they will just go to big banks and they will lend money based on asset-based lending, and then that means that they will use their inventory as a collateral, and in that case, if they have high interest rate, it will actually naturally increase the cost of their business. But it will at the same time, it will provide them a very big funding, because right now they are on very high inventory. So that means that they have more, they can even use that inventory as a bigger collateral to raise more money. But as interest rate increases, it will impact their profits. I think that is the short term. But based on my reading, a lot of these retailers will still reduce their margins, and they'll still will try to do more sales as compared to like hold on to the inventory. So it will definitely impact their margins, but they will try their best to reduce their inventory in these times.
Great. You have nicely answered that, Jabran. Appreciate it. Another question, interesting one, is how do you think technology will change and impact supply chain? For example, the increased adoption and improving 3D possibility. I think the local manufacturing question. I think this question I put, and I already feel that this is already answered, but I still quote that because Fawad took time to type that on. So, for example, the increased adoption and improving 3D possibilities for local manufacturers. Also, given the exceptional increase in freight costs, is there a case for local versus global? I think that is already answered in pretty detail by Khalid. So I would move on to the next one if there is one. People are taking that comment that 7 times increase in freight. Why it increased? That I think that is oil behind it? That is one question. I don't think the oil price was behind it. During the COVID, there were an array of reasons behind it. So if anyone would like to add something to that, we can. Otherwise, we can spend a couple of minutes on that, and we can move on to the warehousing. Okay.
I think two words: demand and supply. That's it.
That's it. Yeah. Okay, warehousing. So again, world changed. What has changed in the area of warehousing space, warehousing operations, warehousing technology, warehousing teams? What has changed in the last couple of years since COVID? So I'll start with the selected. Please repeat that, Honor. You are the Utopia is selected as the partner in 3PL by Amazon. Jabran?
Utopia. Amazon awarded the most valuable shipper of the year award to Utopia in 2021. They gave this award to 4 companies, and Utopia was one of them.
Cool, wonderful. So I would put this question to you first. What has changed? Where we are now?
So warehousing have evolved over years. That there used to be flat warehousing, then there were racking system, and there were like buildings. It used to be smaller height before, and now they have building with 40 feet height with 3 or 4 level of racking system, and with the new forklifts that can use multi-tier racking, and there were racking that they can rack them in a sequence that can optimize space. So the warehousing racking and organizing space is completely different beast. And then In the warehousing, there are Amazon warehouses where they like sort the packages with there are like automated like belts. They move the products, scan the products, and they distribute to different warehouses. So that's so the warehousing technology is one aspect of it, but the warehouses themselves, uh, like most as more e-commerce company get into the business lately, the warehousing demand increased in last couple of years a lot. So the brick and mortar stores, they were just losing business, and during even before COVID, and COVID just expedited that process. So the demand of warehouses have dramatically increased. The warehouses that were not like rented for years, now they had demand in the COVID period, and Amazon increased its warehousing footprint by at least twice. All the major e-commerce sellers acquired more warehousing space, or directly or mostly via third-party logistic companies, uh, and now uh, everyone have excess inventory and excess space. So for example, Amazon is trying to get rid of 10 or 20% of their additional warehouse space. And
Wow.
similarly, many other aggregators and retailers who have acquired space now want to get rid of their space. And at the same time, the brick and mortar stores, who actually some of them, just go out of business, and some of them who are not doing good or not doing as good as they used to do in 10 years ago, now they also have more space than they need. So one of my projection is that in coming years, there will be more space than people need, and there may be a demand drop for warehousing space. So if someone is trying to lease a warehouse for a longer period of time, my recommendation is be
Negotiate
cautious.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So be cautious, because because it may be like very right. I mean, recently the warehousing rental prices, we acquired like close to 800,000 square foot of warehouse in US, Canada, UK, and Europe. But the warehousing cost in the last couple of years just skyrocketed, like freight and everything else. But I do believe that now, as Amazon is subleasing a space at a cheaper price, and also the other players in the market have excess space, and due to that, a lot of people actually thought that there is a big potential. So a lot of people start building warehouses in the last couple of years when they saw this kind of demand, right? So when that will come into the market, that actually can have access access warehousing space everywhere. So that can create a crisis or opportunity, depending on how you look at it. So that is something to look out for.
Absolutely. So Zulfikar, what's your take on that? Warehousing,
I
what has
think
changed and
like
yeah, go ahead.
I think I mean I kind of second what Jebron just said. I think we'll go into an oversupply situation in terms of warehousing, because a lot of 3PL. There was one segment that got created, flourished, and I think is winding up now. That was a sea to air segment, because a lot of companies that I do business with, they were shipping product by sea to a certain kind of collection point, and then air freighting the product from there on. So that kind of helped a lot of third party logistic companies, kind of had mushroom growth, because, so like, for example, in Jebel Ali in Dubai, I mean, there's a lot of sea freight coming and then getting into 3PL warehousing, and then going by air into stuff like, countries where the shipping companies don't really want to go on a regular basis. So I think I agree that there's going to be changes on the third-party logistics side of things.
Interesting. I would like to add a little bit on the some emerging areas inside the third-party logistics space. We have not heard this term like 8-10 years ago, which was like the prep centers. It was introduced by Amazon, where it started the pushing the load of standardized shipment that they expected with certain weights packed and all that, and a layman doesn't know how to correctly do that, and that industry emerged. So that is still flourishing in this era of e-commerce, where e-commerce got heated up. The prep centers started mushrooming, and another thing happened was that a lot of third-party logistics, I don't want to call them third-party, they started calling themselves fulfillment centers, and essentially the service is like that, but I think the velocity of inside the warehouse, as I observed, was way higher. Like kind of the mentality of cross-docking in a way, but not really. But it's like in and processing value add and out, and very less storage, more processing. Those kind of new breed of third-party logistics started to emerge. What do you think, Jebran? Can you classify them with your experience that how the industry is shaping up with these kind of changes coming in the warehousing and 3PL industry?
So it has two parts, right? Amazon do not receive the floor loaded goods, right? Because the floor loaded goods take a lot of time to offload and takes a lot of labor and time. But Amazon want sellers or suppliers to provide them goods which are palletized. They are packed on shrink wrap on pallets and then shrink wrap. So these prep centers or fulfillment centers, what they used to do is like you pick up a container from port, you put them on pallets, you put shrink wrap on top, and then you make appointment with Amazon and you deliver to Amazon. So their sole purpose is just in and out, right? You just, on one side, you're just offloading a container, putting on pallets and putting shrink wrap and putting pallet labels on top. And then you're on the other side, you're loading into other containers. So you actually don't need any big warehouse, a small, maybe 3,000 or 5,000 square foot, a tiny warehouse with a couple of docks can actually run that operation, because they don't have to store that goods. They just have to receive those goods from the ports and then just make it ready, Amazon ready, and then deliver. The other area is that where you need more prep. For example, if there is a manufacturer that does not have these goods as barcoded as required by Amazon, or the goods are in a proper poly, or it's not in a proper packaging that is acceptable by Amazon. So they have to like individually process each and every unit, repack it, and then barcode it, and then repack it in another box and deliver to Amazon. So that's a more intensive. And then of course, you can have Amazon storage is again very expensive, at least 3 to 4 times more expensive as compared to this at least 2 to 3 times expensive, I would say, if you are using a fulfillment center. So people use that for storage as well. So those could be like traditional third-party warehouses where they are providing in and out palletizing operation, and they are just charging you for pallet in, pallet out, shrink wrapping, palletizing, and picking and packing operation, pallet by pallet or order by order level. So that is the traditional model, which is very logical for Amazon, people who sell at Amazon.
I think that's a good explanation on the area warehousing. So the top 3 boxes were basically about like more towards inbound buying, getting it shipped, getting it stored, and now the bottom 3, which is sales, order fulfillment, and inventory management, are like mostly towards outbound. Even inventory is looking at sales, what is selling, what is moving, and what needs to be replenished and not replenished, or even liquidated, or somehow you want to get rid of that. So with that, I would like to kind of merge all the 3 topics, like outbound, and start from sales, or keep order fulfillment together with it, like orders coming in. So the ways and means of sales, how that has changed. I would start with B2B. Is your sales cycle, the way you sell, Zulfikar, in the B2B space has changed during these times? What has changed?
I think it has been, I'm kind of thinking that your questions refer to the last 2 years. So we're not going to talk about what we think will be the situation in a couple of months from now. But I think sale has been pretty robust, very easy. As long as you have the product, you have a sale. The delivery part, has been a challenge with issues on the freight and non-availability of vessels and things like that. And also I think one thing that I don't know if we'll get to talk about, and that is the working capital, because the cost base of everything that we dealt with and all of us have gone up. I mean, this has pushed your working capital needs. So you need double the amount of money to be able to do the same number of units that you used to do pre-COVID. So I think companies that have had financing solutions for their inventory as well as financing for their receivables that they generate have done a lot better than the ones that got off guard. So I think especially in our case, we kind of packaged all the different products under letters of credit, gave customers a longer period because the money was very cheap. We were able to discount our letters of credit at about 1.2% per annum. So if somebody wanted 6 months of credit, we said, okay, you can go ahead, take it, because it only costs you like 0.5%. So I think the financing played a very big role in terms of our ability to execute our orders the last 2 years.
Yeah, Brian, what would you say on the B2C side? Sales. How the sales in terms of bringing sales, how the mindset, how the businesses have started to think differently, and what kind of experiments started to work, which never worked before?
Okay, so I would say before, the e-commerce customer mindset used to be you order something and the expectation from the eBay era was that you were gonna get your order in 3 to 5 days, right? I mean, that's normal. And if it is 3 to 5 business days, so if you order something on Wednesday, you're gonna get it next Wednesday. Likely, if it is late than that, then you message them, oh, I didn't got my order, I ordered a week ago. So that was the expectation. And now the expectation is that I'm sitting here, it is like 7:30, and if I order something today and if I don't get it by tomorrow, I will not buy that, right? So I need something less than 24 hours. And people rely on that so much that even if someone is selling the same product at $2 lower price, the customer will still pay $2 more, $3 more in some cases to actually buy the same product that they can get in 1 day as compared to 2 days, right? So that means that the behavior, the customer expectation have changed. The customer want their goods faster, and it varies from like where the good is and where the customer is. So maybe the customer is in East Coast, the good is in West Coast. So unless you're at Amazon who have the same good everywhere in population centers where they can do like a 1 day, and they have to have enough inventory of that SKU to actually make that happen. So these things become more important, a lot more important over time, and even more important right now. I think what is still missing in this industry, which can completely disrupt it, which is more like you have like with Uber Eats or something, like you order something and you get it like in today or in few minutes. Like the good is available at some location, you just order it, someone goes pick it up and deliver to you. So that is a big disruption element that is still have a big appeal in the market. I believe that is like still something that, because in USA still the customer is willing to pay for it, right? We have seen it, like customer is willing to pay up to $3 or even $4 more if they can get the same thing faster. So that is becoming more important in economies where people can have deep pockets.
That's music to my
Interesting.
ears.
Yeah.
Because I'm a proponent of setting up these smart production facilities across North America, and feeding into this demand of people needing things right now, because attention spans are shorter, and instant gratification is the name of the game for the populace. So I feel incredible opportunity and I'm seeing that on the industrial side of our customers as well. It's one thing I think ask Zulfikar and Gibran to comment on is that there seems to be a huge demand of everything. So, the demand side at this point in time, I don't see a need for demand generation. It's fulfillment is the challenge. That's at least what I'm seeing. So Gibran and Zulfikar can correct me if I'm wrong.
That is interesting, Khalid. So just for the audiences, when Khalid highlights it, Khalid has, although he is representing the enterprise side of the business, where like Fortune 100, not even it's like the multinational level procurement experience, but he has just done a startup and he's sharing that experience with us as well. So he's having two caps today. Thank you, Khalid, for that perspective. Yeah, anyone would like to add to that? I have to add a couple of points from my side as well. And before we move to the next topic, any comment? No? Okay. So what I would like to highlight is that the mindset that we saw as consultant in the market has changed drastically. Like 3 years ago, most of the companies they were doing pretty good. They were selling in store, physically, and in the field, and they were doing good. But when you ask them that what is the vision, what is the next year plan, how much scalability, how are you going to achieve that? E-commerce was a good thing to have, but not on the priority number one. And inside e-commerce, the marketplaces, the brand, the inclusion of, if you are able to do that, not everyone can do that, to include dropshippers on your portfolio was nowhere in the strategy. Like that's a drastic change we saw, that instead of we asking that, how about these people are telling us now that we want to diversify. We don't want to just be eBay or just be Amazon. We want to diversify as soon, because there are opportunities of those mushrooming companies out there who can take that role of specialized 3PL specialized for e-commerce. Like Gibran said, $2 to $5 is the cost per box for shipment, in that range. And with that, it offloads them. And if that kind of shipment and storage and shipment cost is viable for a business, you can scale. People have started scaling. They have started diversifying on the sales channels. That's the change we observed as consultants in the market. And I'm representing small to medium, and touching the enterprise layer. So I think we have discussed about sales. We have discussed about fulfillment. The last thing is and that's a very tricky area called inventory management. Like an effective inventory is I would say that's the lifeline for a business. If you are in today's day and age, I think the criticality has increased manifold. Like you said, Gibran, I remember you said that excessive inventory purchased at higher prices is sitting now in North America, where the fear is that prices might be dropping. And what would those retailers do now? Because their inventories are full with expensive purchases, right? So those kind of scenarios. And just before I forget, Gibran, you mentioned a couple of articles around, you quoted certain numbers and all that. If you could share for our audiences, we'll share them with them later on after the session,
Yeah.
if possible at all. So Gibran, I would start with you on the e-commerce side, inventory management challenge.
Okay, so we manage about 4,000 SKUs. We have like products that have sizes and colors and styles, and like you have to keep some items in even hundreds in smaller quantities, right? So it's almost impossible. Like you go to a manufacturer and you order, like they ask like 60 days and 30 days for shipping. The order is delayed 30 days. After 120 days, when you get your order, the market, e-commerce market has changed already, right? The scenario, you're not the best seller, or you're not at the same spot, or you're not in the same position to sell that, and things have changed. That's 4 months ago. So to handle that challenge, we actually built our manufacturing a few years back, and what we the way it helped us was that if we have a raw fabric and in one day I can dye it in a color, the second day I cut to pack, and in next 30 days I have that product at in my warehouse, and in about 30 to 35 days it's ready to sell. So I cut down that time from 120 days to probably as low as 40-45 days. So that gives me a less reaction time, lower inventory levels, a better and more reliable supply chain, and more importantly I have like a state of the art software, because the supply chain, a complex supply chain with proper tools, proper technology, is impossible to handle. Imagine like I have the same good in different sizes and colors in 4 different countries, and it's in 8 different warehouses, and some of them is in transit to different locations through different paths. It's been manufactured at different locations, and someone need to calculate that how much I need to order in which size and which color and which style every single day, right? And if someone is doing that by just Excel or something like very simple,
Impossible.
they will just make a lot of mistakes, and those just mistakes, miscalculations will cost company a fortune. So if you really want to be like handle it well, the supply chain, if you have a complex supply chain scenario, then you need a very powerful technology to actually help you solve it. Otherwise, if you're doing it manually, or if you're doing through Excel, or if you're using traditional means of calculation, because people don't, when you place an order, you don't check after 30 days if the scenario is still valid, right? That order is placed, right? Maybe you can have to relook into that after 30 days and maybe make adjustments because the scenario have changed, right? So the supply chain becoming more and more difficult in a ever-changing e-commerce world where things are moving very fast. The trends are moving very fast. The scenarios are changing quickly. Maybe you are more competitive in one product than you were a month ago, and you're less competitive in another product because of some new or more competitive players entering in the area. So the response time is less, and you have to be more competitive or more agile in your approach to handle that.
Wonderful. I remember once you shared, Jabran, I think maybe in some session, I heard you saying that your production dye changes, the color of the dye changes in the production unit, even with like 4 more sales of a certain color. In North America, the dye maybe in Pakistan or somewhere where it is manufacturing, that can get affected. So you are so well connected. Your whole planning is so connected because you could do that. Can you highlight a little bit around that example? We are almost done. We are actually 1 minute over. Just finishing it. One last comment from you. Or anyone else would like to have that last comment, please add. But that one I want from Jabran, and then we are finishing the session.
So we left the job to the technology. Like we stopped people making the decision of the what color need to be dyed and how much fabric in each size and style need to be made. So that every day that decision is made. So if I have a lot of 1,000 meter, my software will tell me like I need to make 600 meter in this color and 400 meter in this color, and don't make the other 6 colors. But because these 2 colors are the highest priority, and these will go out of stock and others will not by the time this good will be received in those destinations. So it's technology based.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. So I think that anyone else, Zulfikar, Khaled, anything to add related to inventory? I will just move towards wrapping up. Okay, let's wrap it. Let's wrap it up. So, Zulfikar?
No, I just wanted to say yes. I think thank you. We really, I think with inventory management, change the variable on the arrival metrics and order ahead and kind of so we had to factor in more uncertainty into the supply chain to be able to determine an optimal inventory level, and which did went up that number. And we're all very kind of optimistic as well as scared to see how this thing turn out, because not just it's just not the number of units in your stock. I think it's currency as well. I mean, for someone like Khalid who operates in the local market, you might be in a situation when you start selling to US. I mean, you are invoicing in US funds, and your cost base is all in Canadian funds. So before you know, you are a player in the currency market as well. By default. So I think there's been variables like the parity in terms of different currencies that businesses deal with as well. That
Very interesting
that
dimension
kind of
to that.
affected.
Very interesting dimension to that. Yeah, because you are not just from outside to North America, you are North America to outside as well. So those businesses who are two-dimensional,
Exactly.
currency starts playing its role as well. Very interesting dimension to that. So with that, I would like to highlight a couple of things. First of all, the disclaimer about this session, guys. If you are in this session, or if you are looking at the recording of this session, all the views and all the opportunities highlighted, all the perspectives added are our speakers' views, and please do your due diligence before making any critical decisions. And Open Toronto or Open as such is not responsible for any such decision. Okay. So as the time flies, we have reached the end of the session. Before we conclude, I would like to highlight that if you need the session recording, any reference to the article, Q&A, previous sessions, video links, or still have questions you want to put for the speakers. And if you are watching this recording of this video, even after this session is done, please register at dx.opentoronto.org. That's the registration form, and we'll try to send you the resources in response. Okay, that's our commitment. Thank you so very much. In the end, I would like to thank all the guests and the speakers for their valuable time. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadeem. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.